Remake Rewind.
Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. This episode is episode 50, so we wanted to do something, kind of special, so we decided to do a not a three-parter, but we're going to do Fantastic Four that currently has 3 different movies out, and inevitably there will be a 4th one, Marvel doing it in the MCU, so we're also going to kind of have like a fan casting, what do we want to see, and just kind of predict what we think may or may not happen in the MCU version. So we're going to discuss the 1994 Roger Corman produced unreleased Fantastic Four movie, the 2005 Jessica Alba one, and the 2015 one starring Miles Teller. So what is your guys' relationship with these movies?
First of all, hello, Michael.
Oh,
hi,
shit,
Alex.
We didn't even introduce ourselves.
Hi, David.
Hey.
As always, I'm Mike.
You.
Double D introduced himself, and we've got Alex.
Yo.
Sorry, guys. I'm just really excited to talk about these movies, and, my head's not quite right because, Stan Lee did pass away this week, and, it's kind of fitting that we're doing this episode. Then we had already decided to do these movies. But yeah, Stan Lee passed away this week, so, rest in peace. Very sad. He was a huge, huge, huge part of my childhood. I've discussed it quite a bit on this podcast, my love for Spider-Man, but of course all Marvel movies, and, I'm a huge comic book collector in terms of at least Spider-Man and some Daredevil stuff, so, I do want to say, Stan Lee, you're a real one, and, all your stances on, racism and just really, being an all-inclusive kind of guy, you really touched, billions of people, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Stan. You're really molding a lot of kids' lives with your writing and creations. God damn it.
I get what you're trying to say. No, it's true. He really affected. There's almost everybody. There's almost nobody in the world who doesn't recognize at least one of Stan Lee's creations. Like Spider-Man is arguably one of the most recognizable superheroes. I doubt you'll find almost anybody in at least even in poorer countries, I'm sure they know Spider-Man. So
not even that. Like, he's like probably like one of the most well-known creators because of all the Marvel movies. Like everyone,
all the cameos.
Yeah, like they just like, if you think of like Bob Kane, you don't really.
Nobody really knows what he looks like. I think maybe the only other major creator that people might really know what they look like is maybe Walt Disney. Yeah, that's the only one. I mean, I would recognize some other people, but Stan Lee's so instantly recognizable. Yeah, but other than that, yeah, he was a legend, and we're gonna unfortunately bash some characters based off you in this episode. I'm sure, but thank you for everything you did, and I think it's time to discuss the movies. So what is your guys' relationship with these movies?
So Fantastic Four is the movie, right? So we did the 94 Fantastic Four, which would just release on YouTube, right? The Fantastic Four 2005 with Jessica Alba, and then the 2015 Miles Teller. I've seen the Miles Teller and the Jessica Alba versions. I didn't even know there was a 94 version until you sent it to me with the YouTube link. But yeah, I mean, I've seen these movies before. They're not something I would say are a huge part of my childhood, but I've definitely seen them.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Alex?
Similar. Like, I've seen the movies before. I'm not a huge Fantastic Four fan. My dad always is. He tries to get me to read the comics and stuff, but it just never stuck with me. I did know about the 94, but this was my first time watching it, or what I could understand from the
right.
So
pretty similar for me. I worked at the movie theater when the 2004 one came out, 2005, and we had like pins. I actually worked at the movie theater for both of the 2000 ones, 2005, and then I think Silver Surfer was like 2006 or 2007. I worked at the movie theater for both those. I actually still have a bunch of swag from those movies. Like I have like a poster and pins, and I actually did like the 2005 one when it came out. It's not regarded well overall. Like it's a pretty low rated superhero movie, but I actually found it fun. I saw the 2015 one. Thank God didn't pay for it. I had like a coupon for it, and I remember back then I was really into tracking movies and what's going on behind the scenes, and it had an interesting behind the scenes, so I didn't expect it to be good, and I was still disappointed when I saw it originally. And the 1994 one I knew was a thing. I'd seen stills from it for my entire life, but I saw a trailer maybe 2 years ago. But yeah, I was actually really happy to finally sit down and watch it. And I guess we should just discuss it. So who's doing the first one? Is that me?
Mike, since you haven't done a synopsis in a long time, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, okay. So I've got one written from Anonymous. It's using one of Alex's things. So, when an experimental space voyage goes awry, 4 people are forever changed by cosmic rays. Reed Richard, inventor and leader of the group, gains the ability to stretch his body and takes the name Mr. Fantastic. His girlfriend, Sue Storm, gains the ability to turn invisible and create force fields, becoming the Invisible Girl. Her little brother, Johnny Storm, becomes the Human Torch with the ability to control fire, including covering his own body with flame. The pilot, Ben Graham, is turned into the super strong, super tough Thing. Together, they become a team of superheroes and use their unique powers to foil the evil plans of villains.
Yeah.
Pretty generic.
That was just like the movie.
Yeah, I don't think there was any of the actual plot in it other than the origin, but you know what? I felt I had fun reading that dramatically.
Was that accurate? Is Sue Storm his girlfriend in that movie? I don't think it's till the end.
Well,
right?
they get married at the end of the movie.
Yeah, but there was no
their relationship was really strange.
That's it weirded me out immediately.
Yeah, so
how old is she?
That's right. So the thing that was weird about this movie is, so it opens up, and Reed Richards is presumably a college student, and then he goes to this house, and initially I see this kid playing video games and this man, and I think, now granted, we didn't really discuss it, but we got this off YouTube. This movie was never released. So Roger Corman from Constantine Films owned the rights to this movie, to the Fantastic Four, and he had to have a movie out by 1994 or he would lose the rights. So he made this movie with no intention of ever releasing it. And then once he actually kind of held Marvel ransom and forced them to buy every print of this movie, and didn't tell the cast or crew that this movie wasn't going to be released. They even scheduled a premiere for it, and then he just didn't show up to the premiere. So it's super terrible. Fucked up. So the version that we see is a bootleg version. Somebody made an illegal copy, and it's been distributed over the years, and Marvel's done everything they can for a really long time to kind of squash it, and it wasn't until recently that they decided, fuck it, and just let it be online. So the quality is not very good. So there was a scene where there was this man playing video games, and I'm like, oh, that must be Johnny. And then the kid lost, and then he was like, hey, Johnny, you need to calm down. I'm like, wait a second. Oh, shit, that's Reed. But then there's a girl, a 13-year-old girl, tops, who's like, oh, he's so dreamy, Reed Richards. And then
I was in shock. I was like, is there going to be a time jump? What did we go to the past?
And I thought
somehow?
maybe that was
what's going on here?
Yeah, so then it does time jump 10 years, and then but at that point she's probably 23, and he's supposed to have already been working on his college thesis. He's a PhD student at the beginning of the movie, and then 10 years later, so he's probably in his mid 30s, maybe late 30s by the end of the movie tops. So she would have to be 23, 24. But the thing is, the relationship's weird because he lived at that house. So while watching this movie, I was like, what the fuck is their relationship? I couldn't figure it out, and I had to actually...
Well, it was an orphanage, wasn't it?
No. He lived at a boarding house. So that woman... So there's another woman in the movie. There's a Mrs. Storm, who's their mother, and he rented a room out of the Storm house. So it's he grew up... he lived in a room where this family grew up, and then bangs the daughter later. I'd be very 10 concerned.
10 years down the road.
What was that?
10 years down the road.
Yeah, but if I was Mrs. Storm, I'd be concerned that this man possibly did stuff with her when she was underage. It's a really weird
she was
dynamic.
all about it.
Damn, Diddler.
She was all about it. It was
Yeah,
fucking
Mom was all
weird.
about it. She was like looking at them all dreamy, like.
Yeah, it's really weird. So, what are some highlights of this movie for you guys?
The poor quality.
Yeah,
that was really a standout to me.
You know, it was fun though.
No, there was one scene on there. They were looking at a screen and they're like, "Oh, it must be another language," and I could not see anything.
No,
on the
it
screen.
was really bad.
So bad.
There were points where it was so blurry, I couldn't even tell which character was on screen.
It was a rough watch.
Kind of.
Rough watch.
The one highlight that like had me laughing really hard was when they escape from Doctor Doom and he comes down the basement and he's like I think he says something and then he like doesn't see them there and he looks at the hole. He's like,
Yeah, that's what he does. Yeah, that's exactly what he does. Oh man. Yeah, I had that note. Doom comes back laughing, goes silent. So
and then the Thing in his underwear. That was something.
The Thing costume was actually pretty legit. Like,
oh, you mean the actual rock costume?
The rock costume, yeah. Like,
yeah.
The eyes move, the mouth
Other
move.
than the helmet part of it, I think the rest was great.
Like the helmet, like this movie, even though it came out in the 90s, like if this movie came out in the 80s, it would have like fit in at the time. But in the 90s, it was already kind of dated.
It kind of reminded me of the Ninja Turtles. I liked it. Like
no, the Ninja Turtles is a much better movie than this.
No, I mean like the costume, like how it like emoted. And...
No, the Ninja Turtles are actually better than that. So this movie had a $1 million budget, and apparently they spent most of it on the Thing's costume, which is very apparent.
Wow. Yeah, the Johnny sneezed to find out he had powers.
Oh my god!
Flame on.
So the thing that's weird about this movie is they don't explain anybody's relationship, who anybody is. There's characters who are in the movie for 4 or 5 scenes before we even find out their names. Like Ben Grimm, we don't hear his name until probably 15-20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, he just runs over and he just
he just shows up. Alicia Masters is in this movie, who's the blind sculptress who ends up falling in love with Ben even before she meets him. We don't hear her name until the very end of the movie, and she's in it throughout the entire movie.
Oh man,
it's so weird. And then what's crazy about this movie is it's only an hour and 31 minutes. It's a very quick watch. Like the pacing is just, it flies by. And it's pretty comic book accurate as well. It's one of those things where, you hear people complain about movies not being comic book accurate, but then you can watch a movie like this and you're like, maybe comic book accurate isn't necessarily 100% a good thing. Because if you look at their costumes, they're pretty accurate. And
yeah, the underwear.
The origin is pretty close. It's kind of weird that Sue just made those costumes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and she was just wearing it the rest of the time after
right.
she made it.
Well, the other thing that's weird about this movie, there's several things that don't make sense, both from like a continuity standpoint and just like a physics standpoint. So the beginning of the movie, Reed is doing like this experiment with Doom, and Doom just doesn't want to believe that his calculations aren't correct, so he just like pushes through. He starts getting electrocuted by this machine, and then Ben goes and shoves the guy out of the way.
Tackles him.
Which is not what you do when someone's being electrocuted. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. But they think he died. So, like, Doom has, like, these henchmen, even back then, who were from his country of Latvia.
Doesn't that one guy look like the actor from Flight of the Conchords? Like, Jermaine?
He did look a lot like Jermaine Clement. So he ends up pretending to be dead, and then he goes to rule Latveria and become the king, and he becomes, Dr. Doom, and he has the helmet and the cloak and everything. So 10 years later, Reed decides to like do the experiment, and he has Ben, and Ben convinces him that he needs to take the kids from the beginning of the movie, who are now adults, into outer space, even though they have 0 qualifications. And Reed even says it, that they have 0 qualifications, until he sees Sue, and he's like, "Wanna tap that?"
They just like staring at it.
Yeah, it's fucking creepy. It's so creepy.
Yeah, they both just walk up to each other and just stare in each other's eyes all close like.
Oh my god, it's so weird. So they go up into space and, they misjudge the time or whatever it's supposed to be. They end up crashing, and it's this whole weird exchange where, like, everybody's completely fine, and Reed's like, why are we okay? And everyone's like, dude, why are you upset? He goes, it doesn't make any sense. Look at the ship. It's completely destroyed, but we're okay. And then you mentioned it. Johnny sneezed, right?
Yeah. Did I do that?
Yeah. And then Sue is going to just fall. Like, she's like slips and she's about to like fall on a metal shard. And Reed goes to catch her and his arm stretches and it just looks like a foam noodle.
I didn't know why he was like screaming. Like I thought she was just tripping backwards, and then she's halfway down, and then you see the spike.
Yeah, it was really weird that they wouldn't show it ahead of time.
Yeah, what the hell?
Oh, and like the way she gets invisible, they're like, look, we're like, where's Sue? And she's like, I'm over here, dummies. And they're like, we don't see you. And then like she becomes visible only from like the top half up, and her legs are still invisible. Oh my god, it was so weird.
It was.
And then
it was
like the henchmen guys end up pretending to be the military and abduct them and bring them back to Doom. And then meanwhile, there's like a different subplot where, the reason the experiment went bad is there's a giant diamond they're supposed to be using in their laser.
Yeah.
And this guy named the Jeweler steals the diamond to give to Alicia Masters, even though we don't know that. And he's like in love with her for some reason. And that's why the experiment goes bad. And then Doom kidnaps him and is doing like experiments on him. There's a really fucking weird scene with several scenes with like a doctor trying to draw blood. I don't even know. And then doesn't the Thing turn human several times in this movie?
I thought it was only twice.
Yeah, he can turn back into being a human as long as he's not angry.
He's the Hulk.
Right. Well, and then the other thing is they see Alicia Masters at the beginning briefly, right? But he runs into her.
Yeah.
But they don't
He's
exchange
about
names.
to start yelling at her.
Yeah.
Watch where. Oh.
And then so he's like later on he's like, I think I love her, but he doesn't know his name. And then as the Thing, he sees her in like the sewers, and she's like, I love you. And I'm like, wait, why? And then at the end of the movie, they introduce, like, I think it's time we formally introduce ourselves. I'm Ben. And then she's like, I'm Alicia. And that's the first time you hear the name. And it's the last, 2 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, didn't she, touch the stone face and it was like, Ben Grimm?
Yeah. It's fucking weird. I don't know. The other thing I noticed from a production value is their spacesuits that they were wearing. They were literally, long sleeve, silver aluminum foil shirts, but then they had vests over them, so it's the suits aren't even completely sealed. You couldn't use those as spacesuits. And then the other thing, so they escape from Dr. Doom, and Alex already brought it up though. And then they get back to, I don't know how they get back, but they get back to the Baxter building, and it already has the Fantastic Four logo on it, and they have a flying car. And I was like, what did they build that shit? And Johnny Storm can fly faster than light because he races a laser.
How did he stop the laser?
He just got in the way and he pushed fire at it.
Why did he not explode?
Was that?
Why did he not explode when he hit the laser?
Because he was using his fire powers, bro.
Oh, that nulls the laser?
Yep. I don't know. So this
very confusing.
Movie...
And he can fly in space.
Yeah, he can. Because fire doesn't need oxygen.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So they go to the Dr. Doom's place. They think they're on a military base. But the whole time there's a doctor who has a weird, just kind of a stupid scene with each one. So the Invisible Woman, did she disappear? She's turned invisible, because in this movie there's several times where she goes invisible and causes other people to hurt themselves, she was just gone. So there's a scene where she turns invisible and then the doctor accidentally injects himself with a needle. And then later on there's another scene where there's two guys on either side of her with guns, and she just turns invisible and they both shoot at the exact same time and shoot themselves. in such a way that she would not have had time to get out of the way.
Well,
And then she reappears back in the same spot. Like she didn't move.
I don't know. I can't explain it.
So, I mean, we've got 2 more movies to talk about, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just, like, this movie, I already mentioned, they had no intention of ever releasing it. They did have a trailer, and Marvel actually denied that this film ever existed, but then when fans kept saying, we saw the trailer, they tried to say it was a TV show that they decided not to do, and then, of course, it leaked, but a couple of big actors like actually wanted to be in this movie. So Mark Ruffalo actually auditioned to play Dr. Doom. Patrick Warburton auditioned to be Ben Grimm.
Warburton?
Yep. Crazy.
Did we need the jeweler in this movie?
No, it added nothing to it.
No.
Like he could.
I mean, I guess it added the origin. Like he was the one that replaced the diamond, right?
But they
Dr.
could have
Doom
just
was
easily
going to do that himself, and then he's like, "Oh, this guy's doing it for me."
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
exactly. The henchmen were going to go do it, but then somebody else had already done it. But yeah, you could have just had the henchmen do it.
Wait, so I don't understand the henchmen in the first place. They were in like the first scene.
Yeah, it was weird. So when Doom and Reed were walking to go do their experiment, they were there like in disguise.
Yeah. So were they his henchmen already?
Yeah, because he's the king of that country.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, Dr. Doom is the king of Latveria.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and like in the comic books, everything he is a. That's why like his character's a little strange because he has diplomatic immunity.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So, I think it's safe to say, moving into the 2005, that this movie, I guess it's not even technically a reboot since this wasn't really released, but it definitely needed something other than this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool. So let's move into the second one. Who's going to synopsisize?
Before we move on, I would just say it didn't need to be released.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't.
I
but that guy
wouldn't
held
mind
Marvel.
watching it like in a bit more better quality. Like
honestly, like it's one of those movies that I think would be fun just to throw on at like a party when people are kind of like drunk and there's something stupid in the background to laugh at, but you don't really need to pay attention to it. Like I would watch it again in that kind of setting.
Yeah.
I'd put Commando on.
Oh, Commando's
Okay.
great.
No, change my answer. Commando's good.
All right, who's gonna synopsisize?
That would be me. Yes. This is from Film Fan. 4 astronauts have their lives changed forever when they end up being hit by a cloud of cosmic radiation. Reed Richards now has the ability to stretch his body like elastic. Sue Storm, Alba, is now the Invisible Woman. Johnny Storm becomes the Human Touch. And Ben Grimm becomes the Thing, a man made out of rock. I love this. But there is one problem. The Journey sponsor, Victor Von Doom, has been affected and with full power is a dangerous force which needs to be stopped before it's too late. That's from Film Fan.
No.
Thanks, Film Fan. Really enjoyed the human touch in this movie.
For the record, Katrina is annoyed that we say synopsisize. Anyway, what are some highlights of this movie? Because this movie, honestly, was better than I thought, like I remembered it being.
I mean, it's a lot. It's really corny, but it's not a terrible, terrible movie.
I think the reason this one's looked down on so much is when you compare it to... So this came out a year after Spider-Man 2, and maybe a couple years after X-Men 2, and those 2 movies are considered some of the best superhero movies of all time. I personally don't think they've aged very well, but they're still very, very heavily regarded or highly regarded. And I think that this movie, this particular movie, was kind of somewhere between those movies and the Joel Schumacher Batman movies. Like they're super corny, but they have much better special effects and some decent acting, decent actors in it. But it wasn't a good movie by any stretch.
No, it wasn't a good movie. I think a lot of that had to do with the corniness of it.
Right.
I mean, it was an entertaining movie, but there were just so many things that took you out of the movie.
And there's also, like, the thing that's crazy is this movie crammed a lot into it. So this movie was like an hour and 46 minutes. And it got a lot of done. So it had the origin. It had, basically 4 origins. A lot of superhero, the big superhero fight ending. But then it had a lot of like little subplots and little things where Johnny Storm would go have his own little mini adventures, and the Thing would go have his little mini adventures, and so like I'm surprised at how much screen time each person got. Like, they did a really good job managing that. I think that's probably the hardest part of doing a movie like this back then, is making sure each character gets their due.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I felt like the human touch in this movie was a little overbearing.
I liked the relationship between Alba and the human touch. It was I felt like
you guys keep saying the human touch.
Yeah, that's what the synopsis has.
No, I missed that.
It's good because like it definitely felt like a brother and sister like relationship. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I liked it, and then I also liked Michael Chiklis because it's Michael Chiklis.
I thought Michael Chiklis was great in this movie. I think he's probably the best part, besides Chris Evans. Like, I think those two were definitely the best part of this movie. Jessica Alba's terrible. She looked great in the costume, but she was terrible. And what's weird is like her costume's the only one that doesn't zip all the way up.
It's I have no excuse for this.
Yeah, there is no excuse for it. So the thing is, apparently once they cast her, they added a bunch of scenes. So they redesigned the costume, and then they also added the underwear scenes.
Nice.
So they definitely this whole movie was designed to objectify Jessica Alba.
And it succeeded. And the second version of it did too.
The second version, you mean the Silver Surfer?
The Silver Surfer.
Yeah. I never liked the Silver Surfer movie. I actually did like this one.
No, I'm just saying they objectified her even more.
Oh, did they?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember. I have it. I have the 2-pack Blu-ray for this version, and I actually just opened it after having it for probably a decade to watch these. But the thing that's weird is Chris Evans as Johnny Storm is still fucking jacked in this movie, but nowhere near Captain America jacked. Like,
no,
he's ripped in this one, but he's not like ginormous. It's
he's such a jerk.
Yeah, he is a total asshole in this movie, but that's what the character's supposed to be, and that's the only thing that we haven't really got in the movie so far, and of course we'll talk about the third one in a minute, is Sue Storm in the comic books, honestly, has fluctuated in what she actually is. Like, in the beginning, she really was almost like a damsel in distress. They actually did call her Invisible Girl. She didn't really have much to do. She always needed rescuing. And then she got more serious later on. Johnny Storm
became more of a leader, right?
What was that?
She became more of a leader later on.
She did. She absolutely became a leader, and she challenged Reed pretty consistently. She actually became a force that a lot of like Doctor Doom kind of fell in love with her because of her strong, she was a very strong, powerful woman, and could go to toe with intelligence with Reed Richards. Namor the Submariner also loved her and would like constantly kidnap her. That's where like his origin was. Well, he was technically the first Marvel comic, but he kind of went away, and then he came back as a person to basically keep kidnapping Sue, which is a little weird. The thing that we didn't get in either movie, all three really, was Reed Richards is kind of an asshole in the comic books. Like, he's like a huge
condescending, right?
Yeah, he's even worse than like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. Like, his character's supposed to be smarter than like Hank Pym, smarter than Tony Stark, and he lets people know, and he is a total prick.
Yeah, so. He was very not prickish in this movie. I guess they wanted him to be like relatable and like likable, but
right.
I mean, it's hard to contrast Doom if you have an asshole.
Right. No, I agree, and that's where the family aspect is supposed to be. And these guys, the Fantastic Four was always designed to be a family and have like inter-team conflict. And I think they did a really great job with kind of like the rivalry between Human Torch and the Thing. Like, they were really egging each other on throughout the whole movie, and I actually really enjoyed that aspect. Like when they're in the hospital and right after crashing the space, or going through the accident, he hands Ben Grimm a mirror and he's like, hey, the plastic surgeons did everything they could, and you're thinking like, oh, he turned into the Thing already, and then it's just himself, and he does the little what do you got? The shaving cream on the face, little gag, and there's a lot
the
of
feathers didn't work, so he had to use the wood.
he had to use the wood side, the handle, and then like that little fight after he does exactly what he would do in the comic books. Like he tries to become like the spokesperson, for the Fantastic Four. He wants the fame and the glory, and he goes out and makes a spectacle, and like they get in a little fight in the street. Like it was a pretty cool little fight with them, throwing fire. He destroys the car, I thought they had a really great dynamic for that. The snowboarding scene was really great too. I actually thought that Chris Evans in this role was great, and I actually really thought that Johnny Storm was perfect in this movie.
I mean, I liked it. It was good casting, I think, but I don't know. Just the Johnny Storm assholeness took me out of it.
He's supposed to be a smug asshole, though.
I know, but like that much?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I mean, he's matured quite a bit in the comic books. Like he died a few years back, and then he's come back. He like sacrificed himself. But so the thing is, the Human Torch in the original comic books, I think he was like 16 years old when he got his powers. And him and Peter Parker are actually really, really good friends. And Peter Parker is always like trying to calm him down because he's super competitive. Like, there's several Spider-Man video games where you race the Human Torch kind of thing, because they were like really good friends and competitive with each other. So I think they did a good job, considering they kind of had to age him up a little bit. And I liked how he had a relationship with Ben Grimm, and that Ben Grimm was his commanding officer in like the Air Force kind of thing. Like they tied it in a way that made sense, that wasn't like phony, which was kind of phony in the first movie.
How about that Thing costume?
I thought it was great.
Oh man, it just looked so plastic to me.
I thought it looked great. It moved with him. It was expressive. The problem is, when you go practical, you can't make him look giant.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean,
I
it
thought
just looked like
great.
a bad version of a Ninja Turtle costume.
Well, so this is what I'm going to say. Stan Lee would disagree with you. He actually said that Michael Chiklis and the Thing design was one of his like favorite Marvel portrayals on screen.
Well, I guess I'm just wrong then.
But he also said that he can't see anything of the recent MCUs because his eyes were going really bad.
What was that?
He couldn't see anything. Couldn't see any of the recent MCUs because his eyes was going bad. So
that's unfortunate. Well, man, you really just took this podcast in a negative direction.
That's why I'm here.
So the thing about this movie, there was a lot of, like you mentioned it, W, a lot of corniness where they would do certain things that just obviously foreshadow what's going on. So Reed Richards is poor. He ran out of money trying to do his experiment, so he's going to Victor Von Doom to try to get funding and also use their space station. And Dr. Doom says something, or Victor Von Doom says something along the lines like, "Oh, Reed Richards, always stretching, reaching for the stars," kind of thing. They do a lot of stuff like that. They also are like, Ben is the muscle. He goes, "I'm the muscle." Reed does the talking, and then, "Oh, Johnny, you're such a hothead." It's
but my favorite
stuff like
one
that.
is like, these 4 little words is going to change our lives forever.
The storm is accelerating.
Yeah, and I was like, "Is it storm? Is yeah."
Yep, it matches. There's also like a stupid part where Reed turns into Hugh Jackman.
Yes.
Which stretches his face like while he's on like a date. That's because they actually almost cast Hugh Jackman in this role, but he was already Wolverine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or they wanted to make a cameo, and then it ended up not happening. I can't remember exactly what it is.
I think it was that one. Like, they're trying to like make the 2 universes combine.
Yeah, they almost did that with the 2015 as well. They just couldn't get their shit together.
They almost did it recently also with with Deadpool, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, they had a couple of the newer versions of the characters in there. I don't know. Fox never really had their shit together. Like, they would have one great movie and then a shitty one, and then a great one and then a shitty one. What did you guys think about the special effects in this one? I actually thought the Human Torch looked great. Like, I think it looks just as good as anything else that's out there today.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they got it any better in the new one. It was pretty cool.
I also really liked Doom's costume.
I liked that they used his mask. and hood.
And they had like the green hood, and I think it was, but like I liked the green hood where it wasn't like corny like the original one, because the one in the 1994 looks exactly like the comic book.
I just hated his hands. His hands looked ugly.
Yeah, the hands were dumb, but I mean, like I really liked like the hood and the helmet. I thought it was a great way of updating it and then still keeping it, consistent with the tone of the comic book. But I mean, this Doom is actually. Now, on the flip side, Stan Lee said this is like his least favorite portrayal of a character, because this Doctor Doom isn't Doctor Doom. He basically is Electro.
Yeah, it was really weird, and I think the progression of Doctor Doom in this movie is kind of like slow, and then I'm instantly Doctor Doom.
Well, I mean that's how it is with a lot of the supervillain origins, and even in today's movies, like when you look at like Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man movie, he's just like, "Oh, I'm evil." Like, it just flips. Yeah. It happens a lot. It is what it is. It's a trope. But I actually thought the actor that they had, I can't remember his name. He's from Nip Tuck. I thought he would have actually been... Julian Mahan, yeah. I think he could have been a really great Doom, but the script in this movie was just so bad. Oh my god, it was really bad. I can't even...
Yeah, I don't know at this point, were they making the movies for the kids, or are they making them like now where it's for both adults and kids? Like,
I think that like this was meant to be like a family-ish movie. It was PG-13, and I think it was meant for everyone to go through it. The big problem I had with this movie is everybody loves the Fantastic Four in this movie, right? Like, New York City is obsessed with them. But everything that they say they saved was a problem that they caused. Like it's like this world needs a J. Jonah Jameson to be like, they're a threat. Are they a threat or a menace? Because they first get noticed when somehow Ben gets from the Alps to New York.
He ran.
You ran across the ocean in less than a week. So that's the thing that doesn't make sense about this movie, is this whole movie takes place in like a week. So they go up into space. From the time they come down from space and everything goes wrong, they're at a hospital in the Alps, and then there's this bank that's I guess Doom Industries is going to go public and have an IPO. So they have a bank backing it. So they have a meeting like right when they come back from space, and they're like, you have a week to turn this around because the stock's dropped. And then the same day that he kills the banker guy, he goes after the Fantastic Four. So this is all within a week. And so somehow Ben gets back to New York, causes his bridge to almost collapse.
Girlfriend, who comes out in their lingerie to see someone, honestly.
Well, he had a lot of problems with some stuff with her. So he has like a picture of her and says how great she is and how they're going to be together forever. And he goes and visits her, and he's in like a little phone booth kind of thing. And she comes down and is just like instantly afraid, which I can understand your first reaction, being like, what the fuck? And being afraid. But she leaves. Well, so then Ben goes and sits on a bridge, and he sees the guy almost kill himself. And then he makes the guy who's going to kill himself fall into traffic. And then he stops a big rig, which ends up causing a fire, which ends up causing a fire truck to take down half the bridge. And then they save the day and they get all this credit, but it's like they're the ones who caused it. But then somehow the girlfriend's there. And the rest of the Fantastic Four, they don't know that Ben's there, but they just happen to show up. And the girlfriend happens to show up and then takes the ring off and throws it at him. Like,
she just puts it on
or she just drops it.
Yeah, leaves it on the ground.
You know what? That's Andrea from The Walking Dead. I didn't like her there either.
I hated her there. Oh my god.
But yeah, that was just so messed up.
Poor Ben couldn't even pick up the ring. Reed had to pick it up for him.
It's so sad. The other thing that's weird about that scene is Sue turns invisible because she's angry. Yes! And they're like, oh, go, use that to get through.
Yeah.
And then they're through all the crowd, and she's like, I can't believe you made that. And he goes, well, it worked. We got through. Why did she need to get invisible? How did they get across?
Yeah.
Or is it? It didn't make any sense.
Where it was like everyone just like dumbfounded, and they just like ran to where she disappeared, and they're like, "Where did she go?" Oh no,
I think
God.
What happened.
Maybe she made a distraction or something.
I think it actually showed what happened. Is she basically, because she was invisible, people wouldn't see her coming. So when she'd push them, they would be like shocked and get out of the way, and then they just kind of followed her. When in all reality, they could have just walked through people.
Oh,
It's
it?
really
Very
stupid.
No.
The Stanley cameo in this movie, he was the mailman, and this is the first time that Stanley actually played an actual Marvel character. There's not much more I want to talk about in this. There's, like the corniness, like the campiness when they say, when a bad guy says a word or a phrase, and then the good guys use it against him. So Doom goes and superheats Reed and goes, you know what, Chemistry 101, what happens when you superheat rubber? And then he goes, Chemistry 101, what happens when you
Just
super
loves
cool
chemistry.
rubber? And then Reed says the same thing to him later on, like, what happens when you rapidly cool metal, because they set him on fire kind of thing.
All right, guys, there's more to chemistry than just heating and chilling things.
Right.
Bunsen burners.
I did like that scene where, so this movie also had them take away Ben's powers and he's human again, and then he goes through the machine again and gets powers. But I did really like that fight scene with him and Doom where he like punches him through the wall and then this big metal thing falls on him. You think he's dead, and then Doom tackles him across the room, and then they fly across the street, end up in a different building, hit the pool cracks, they get washed onto the street. I actually thought that was a pretty cool little fight scene.
That was a cool fight scene. But did they show him get his go back into the thing, or they just
You just see
they
the
show, you see his
light
hand hit the
flashing,
button.
right? Or something.
Yeah, and you see
But,
the light
like,
flash.
didn't Doom power it to get his powers away?
Well, he didn't.
You needed more power to take the power away.
He didn't. need
Regular
more
power is
power
fine.
to get. Yeah.
So they could have given him powers with less power.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they said, is to reverse it, you need more power.
That's weird. But
So the thing that's dumb about this at this point, so by the end of the movie, Ben decides to stay as the Thing, right?
Yeah.
But at this point, they're heroes. They become, they get all these resources. Like in the second movie,
He has a
they
girlfriend.
have government contracts, all this stuff. You think that they would, to have a superhero, that the city would give them the power to create the Thing when they need it. That you wouldn't have to live as the Thing at this point.
Nope, it's got to be the Thing.
That's stupid.
Permanent.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we move into the next one?
I really like the fighting that for Reed Richards. Like I felt like that's the most.
I thought it was great. Yeah, when he
most
actually fights the
Mr.
Thing and he has to
Fantastic,
wrap around him.
fighting. Yeah.
And then when he fights Doom, just wrapping around him, and then he has Ben pull on him so Doom gets disoriented, and then Johnny sets him on fire.
How he comes.
Yeah, the
comes down.
other ones are just like Dalzims.
Well, and then even when he does the when they break the fire hydrant to cool him down, he does this thing where he like makes a spiral funnel thing.
Yeah.
Like, they were a lot more imaginative with this. There was also a point where he like shaves his face and he like stretches his face. He
Get some
turns his face into Hugh Jackman. He also, when he falls asleep on the desk, his face molds into the keyboard. They did do some clever things with this. So I honestly thought this movie was pretty fun. I had a good time watching this one.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
And I did like
yeah,
the snowboarding
good.
scene where he catches
Care to
fire for the
join me?
first time and he melts and then he makes like a little hot tub and gets Maria Menounos to.
Was that really
Go with
Maria Menounos?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was her. You're really hot. Thank you. You're hot too. I'm also not afraid to cry. I think
You have a fever.
I think Johnny was great in this. I think his delivery was great. I would have really watched a movie that was just the Human Torch and the Thing.
Yeah, that would have been pretty funny. But it's hard not to have the Fantastic Four.
Right. No, totally. All right. So, Double D, can you summarize, synopsisize, give us a synopsis of the 2015?
Fantastic Four 2015. Not just the Human Touch. Okay, here we go. This runs from 20th Century Fox.
Yeah. Both of
Four
these.
young Hey. No, never mind. 4 young outsiders teleport to an alternate and dangerous universe which alters their physical form in shocking ways. The 4 must learn to harness their new abilities and work together to save Earth from a former friend turned enemy. Yeah.
That makes
from
this movie
20th
sound
Century
way
Fox.
better than it is.
I mean, yeah. I feel like there were so many like unfinished thoughts in this movie when they were making it.
So the problem with this movie was, this was another case of they had to make the movie or they were going to lose the rights. So what ended up happening is Marvel actually really wanted this. And so at the same time, Daredevil's rights were going to expire. So Marvel offered to let them have Daredevil and extend the Daredevil rights if they could take Fantastic Four, but Fox decided that they'd rather have Fantastic Four than Daredevil. So that's how we got Daredevil back to the MCU already.
Yeah.
So they hired Josh Trank to do this movie, who had done Chronicle, which is a great movie.
I love that movie. It's so great.
I love that movie
it's
as
American Akira.
Right. I've never seen Akira, the anime, so I can't argue with that. So I'm gonna trust you for once, okay? So
It's not.
he does this movie. Everyone thinks he's gonna be great, and then apparently he was like a dick on set. Apparently he wanted to cast Allison Williams from Girls to be Sue Storm, and Fox had already cast Kate Mara. And so apparently he was like a dick to Kate Mara the entire shoot.
Well, she handled it like a champ.
Right. And then he made this movie like it was going to be like a 2 hour and 40-minute movie. And Fox was like, and it was apparently like super violent and super dark. And Fox was like, no, we're not going to do this. And so he got pissed at Fox in the middle of set. Like apparently he also destroyed the house that he was living in.
The hell?
While they're like, so they rented him a house, and he like destroyed the house. And then when they made him do reshoots, he was pissed. So just before the movie came out, like the director of this movie was bashing the movie on Twitter a week before the movie came out, saying
Amazing.
that he, it's not his movie. He doesn't want his name associated with it. This is once Stan Lee started doing cameos. This is the one movie that he just did not do a cameo for. He refused to do it. I don't know if he read the script or what, but he just did not want anything to do with this movie. Like, then they went through a ton of reshoots. So they did the movie, they finished it, and Fox is like, "Oh fuck, this is bad." So they did reshoots, and you can definitely tell they did reshoots in this movie.
Oh my god, there's so many scenes with Kate Mara and her terrible wig.
It's a terrible wig that's a different color than the rest of her hair and the rest of the movie. There's scenes where Miles Teller has almost a beard, and then like in the same scene it's gone. Then he has the beard again, then it's gone. Oh my god, it's so bad. And there's no action in this movie.
Not till the very end.
Yeah.
And it's like 5 minutes.
They cut 3 action scenes from it, and then they give you like a little tease where you can watch Ben watching. It's almost like a football player watching tape of his
Honestly,
former missions.
I would have watched the director's cut for this and would have been okay with it being 2 hours and 40 minutes if it was a better movie.
Well, the thing is, but look at the special effects. Like the Human Torch looked worse than the last movie.
Yeah,
the flames were pixelated. It looks like something I could do in Maya, and I have no animation skills. Like we had Maya in the computer lab in my high school, and I basically made a Human Torch on that looked about the same as the Human Torch that we got. And even the Thing, I thought the Thing looked okay, but if the Thing was on screen with anybody else, it looked terrible.
I actually like Jamie Bell as the Thing in this.
But the thing is, they digitized his voice so much when he became the Thing, you couldn't even tell that it was him.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I actually really like Jamie Bell as well. He's, he was in Billy Elliot, he was in Les Mis, he's great. But he was barely in this movie, and then by the time he's the Thing, he's unrecognizable.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with this movie. And then I don't know, man, like nothing made sense to me in this movie. Like it was just like it was very like I said, unfinished thoughts. Like it would just jump scene to scene.
Well, and they tried to make Reed flawed in that they put him like they kind of made him semi like he's on the Asperger's kind of spectrum. And they tried to make it like he was kind of something like Doom was always like, "You're so smug, you think you're smarter than me," and he's like, "I am smarter than you. I tricked you." And like they end when they beat him, but he doesn't. Like he's so socially awkward. He doesn't recognize that.
The end of that too is so. Oh my god!
The last couple lines of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cringy.
So bad.
Wait, say that again.
It's the last part of the movie.
Fantastic.
Oh my god. That's it, and then it goes black. Well, and then there's like a point. So the thing that's weird about this movie is, for the most part, the characters are all separated the entire movie. So Reed is a pussy and like he escapes from the the base and runs away.
That's so messed up. Ben is like, "Reed, come back."
Yeah, it's super sad. And then throughout the rest of the movie, he's like, "You're not my friend anymore," and he's like, "Oh, you're running away again," kind of thing.
Understandable.
No.
Kate Mara, Sue Storm, and Johnny spent a little bit of time on screen after their powers, but Ben was isolated the whole time. And then, oh my god, it's so bad. When they do finally all get together, there was no reason they should have beat Doom. Like, Doom had so many superpowers. Like, I don't understand how Doom let them live.
He should have killed them all. Yeah.
So when Doom finally shows up, like, he's melted into his costume, like the little space suit kind of thing.
Yeah.
He has telekinesis. He had the power to pull down an entire building on one group of people. And then later on, he's literally just like making people's heads explode.
Yep.
Like, why would he not just explode their heads?
He's toying with them.
But why?
I don't know.
And then when he finally gets to, and his whole thing is he's going to destroy the Earth because he doesn't want people coming to Planet Zero, which is where they go to, destroy that world. But it's so weird. And it's weird how people are dicks to Reed when clearly he's a genius, but his like high school teacher is just like a dickhead to him.
Yeah, dude, what the hell is that? That pissed me off a lot.
He's like, that's not science, that's magic. At the very minimum, he created a laser.
Yeah.
Like, that's very impressive. And then I don't even know. This movie was also like kind of ham-fisted in how they got their powers, like when they're trying to get back to their world and all the rocks go in Ben's thing, and then fire goes into his, like, they couldn't figure out a way to make him stretch, so he just ended up stretching later.
And then Sue, like a force field hits Sue.
Right.
The blaster.
The other thing that was bad about this is the stretching effect looked about the same as the 2005 version.
It looked almost the same as the 94 version.
It looked so bad.
It's definitely more horror aspect, like.
Right. I did like how he kind of fought people in the forest when they finally found him in the jungle. And, he does this thing where he, like, jumps and he does it, like, he stretches and, he does some cool little, like, stretch flips and then he, like, flings a guy into a tree and then another guy,
That's like 2 minutes.
He dodges. Not even. It was, like, 15 seconds. But then Ben just headbutts him.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
I
do like that it was a year later, so they all knew how to use their powers at that point, though.
Yeah, I did like that aspect. But then, like, another subplot is they're sending Ben on, Black Ops missions to, like, overthrow governments.
Stealth missions. I was like, how's Ben Grimm stealthy as fuck?
Right. Well, then they're going to send Johnny on these missions, and Johnny's dad's like, you can't do this. He's like, I want to do it, kind of thing. And then by the end of the movie, once they, like, somehow defeat Doom when they shouldn't have been able to, they get their own little base. Like, the military's like, we'd like you guys to keep working with us. Is that okay? And they're like, it's not okay. We want our own multi-billion-dollar base. Oh. And this base is, like, in the middle of the mountains.
Central City.
I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with this. Like, it's just so laughably bad. The CG is terrible. These guys are they're all supposed to be, like, 17, 18 years old. And I don't buy for a minute that Miles Teller and Jamie Bell were in high school.
Oh, no, not at all. Were they supposed to be? Oh,
yeah,
they were supposed to be.
They were at a high school science fair.
Yeah.
And they also do, like, this movie's so serious that when they do make jokes, like, Johnny makes a few jokes here and there, but they just don't work because the rest of the movie's serious. And there's a point where they're like, oh, look at Dr. Doom over here, kind of thing when he says something. And then at the end of the movie, Johnny's a dick to Ben for no reason. Like I was saying earlier, they don't interact at all the entire movie. And at the end, we're like, we should have a name because there's 4 of us and we're a team. And he's like, how about the 2 guys, a girl, and the thing that nobody wanted? And it's like, but where's that coming from?
I don't know.
Fucking dickhead.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of weird. At first, I wasn't super happy with Michael B. Jordan as Johnny, but I think he did okay.
He did okay with what it was, and honestly, like, it didn't even bother me, because, they're supposed to be brother and sister, adopted is fine. It did surprise me that they made her be the adopted one, but, whatever. And the whole reason Doom ended up not liking Reed was, 1, he finished his project, but 2, he sees Reed and Sue laughing one time, and he's like, "You're not being very professional." And he's like, "We're done."
I'm gonna go take a nap.
Yeah.
All the other times Reed was just staring at Sue. It's weird. It's weird.
Where did Doctor Doom get the hood?
Yeah, I was thinking that too, but I don't know. Maybe he crafted it with his powers.
I don't know. He had like every power. It's so stupid.
All the powers. I kind of liked the melded suit look.
I thought it looked terrible.
No, it's
so
bad.
goofy.
I kind of liked it.
The eyes
It is
are
terrible.
so
I mean, once you
goofy.
put
He looks like
on.
a crash test dummy.
He does look like a crash test dummy. He looks like Buster from Mythbusters. Oh, man. All right, so I think the next business, I think it's safe to say that this remake was not necessary. This was literally done just to spite Marvel.
I agree. I mean, I think there should be a remake, but this wasn't the one we're looking
right.
for.
Well, the thing that's weird about Marvel has been flexing their muscles, so Marvel discontinued the Fantastic Four comic books when this movie was announced. They wanted to make it where nobody knew who the Fantastic Four was. And Marvel, throughout the entire time Marvel's been making movies, even when they weren't the ones that were like Fox with the X-Men and, you know, Sony with Spider-Man, they have always owned the merchandising rights. They did not do merchandise for the Fantastic Four movies. Like they just,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they did not want these movies to succeed. So
there were no Miles Teller toys.
Nope. None.
Dang it.
So, because we're doing, obviously this movie is going to be remade again. We know Marvel has the rights to Fantastic Four again. I thought what we would do, since this is episode 50, do something a little special. We're obviously doing a 3-part, episode. But I thought we could spend some time thinking about, what we would like to see in the MCU version, maybe do some fan casting, and just kind of talk about where we'd like to see this go. So any ideas on what, themes or character portrayals that you guys would think would be interesting to see in the future?
I mean, I was never a big Fantastic Four reader in the comics, but I've got some casting I would totally do. But as far as like story based, obviously I'd want an origin, but I feel like it would have to be an overlap with somebody else, like already established MCU character.
Right. I kind of think what I would like to see from an origin standpoint is maybe that maybe Reed went to the same school as Tony Stark, and maybe he was a few years older than Tony Stark. Like, I would like to see an older Reed and older Sue and older Ben, and then like a younger Johnny Storm, like in the comic books. So maybe they're in their late 30s and Johnny's like 18, 19, 20 kind of thing. So like maybe Sue was in high school when Johnny was born. Like, I think that would be an interesting dynamic to have that dichotomy. But like maybe they go on their experiment, like they do their experiment and they end up in like the negative zone, or they get lost in space, and maybe Thanos' snap, there's enough energy for Reed to focus on it and find Earth again, or something like that. I think that'd be an interesting way to have them.
Yeah, actually,
because the thing is
kind of like how I wanted it. It's like a period. Well, how I saw it. Oh, sorry, you go ahead. You finish.
Well, my big thing was, so the Fantastic Four in the comic books have always been famous. Everybody knows who the Fantastic Four is. Johnny Storm's a celebrity. Ben Grimm's a celebrity. Like, they're celebrities. But in the MCU, with the exception of Spider-Man, everybody knows who all the other superheroes are. Especially when, in Winter Soldier, when Black Widow leaked all the documents, so they even know who she is and who Clint Barton is. So the only way to make them famous is to make them people who were well known before, and they disappeared, and maybe they come back 10 years later. So maybe they disappeared, a few years before the events of Iron Man. Or maybe they disappeared while Iron Man was still in college and they're out in space or whatever, and they come back. And that would be a reason for them to be as like super, super famous. Because at this point, superpowers like isn't going to be as impressive.
Yeah, that's true. I think that could work if they've been on a space adventure.
Right.
But then, I mean, if they've been gone that long, you wouldn't have a super young Johnny.
Well, it could be that maybe they were in a different dimension or something like that, where time doesn't pass or something like that. That's what I was kind of thinking. Like maybe they were in the negative zone and time they just didn't age or something like that.
Yeah.
Or that could even be maybe they their origin could be linked to the third Ant-Man movie kind of thing, and like maybe the quantum realm.
Yeah. Well,
What about you, Alex? You said that you kind of had an idea on maybe where you'd like the direction to go.
It was actually just what you said. It was like I was thinking like for Fantastic Four, it works like maybe like a period piece, because like it's very of that era. It's like, oh, this is like the famous family, and everyone looks up to this family and stuff like that. So like maybe it could be like set in the past, and then these guys get lost in their quantum realm. In one of those
That could work. Like even
vortex.
earlier, like the 60s or 70s.
Yeah, and then and then they get brought to the present day, or something like that.
Right. I'd also like to see a super condescending Reed. Like I would like to see, and I know Marvel's a little lighthearted, but you can have Ben Grimm and Johnny for that. But I would like to see just a, super egotistical Reed.
Cool. I don't know how I'd be receptive, like egotistical and like Stark egotistical.
No, like even worse than him. Like I want to see one who's like he's super smart and he's like almost like how Dr. Octopus.
I think Hank
in Spider-Man 2 is like
does a good balance between that.
What was that?
Hank Pym, Michael Douglas.
Right. Like, but I want to see him even go beyond Hank Pym. Like Hank Pym's the closest to a Reed Richards, right? But I want to see him where it's like Reed Richards is smarter than Hank Pym. He's smarter than Tony Stark, and I want him to be even like a dick to them, like kind of thing. Yeah. Like he's just like he literally in the comic books creates things that can destroy gods, kind of thing. Like his son, like Reed and Sue's son Franklin Storm, is basically a god, and like he creates a thing that puts his son in a coma because he's too powerful.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Reed's super dark. There's a point where Reed's part of what's called the Illuminati. That's him, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Thunderbolt, where they launch Hulk into space, and they do a lot of and Xavier, they do a lot of shady shit in the background, and they just basically run the world without anybody knowing. There's a point where they all lose their powers, and they have to fight Doom, and Ben is like, I don't want to be the Thing again, and against his will, he makes Ben become the Thing again. He's not a good, he's a hero in the sense that he doesn't want world domination or anything like that, but he's not a nice man.
I mean, I could see that working. I mean, it'd have to be darker, like Batman darker, I think.
Well, I think you can have one character, obviously not quite that dark, but I would just like to see it, I don't want to see the universe go that dark, but I would like to see him be kind of smug.
I think that's a step past smug, though. If you're like you're describing it.
Well, I'm just saying that's the comic book. I would like to see something closer to that than just
because I just don't think it would work in the current iteration of the MCU at the moment.
But the world.
I mean, it could work if you have the rest of the team balancing him out.
Right. I think it could work, like you said, Double D, if it balanced, but also depending on how the Marvel Universe is post Infinity War Part 2. If people still remember Thanos and the snap, the world can get a little bit darker.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Double D, you said you had some casting. I've definitely got some casting as well. So let's hear.
Actually,
who do you have for Reed?
Reed, I had Zachary Quinto.
You know, it's funny. Zachary Quinto, I always thought more of or Quinto, however you pronounce it. I've always thought he would be a great Submariner.
Really?
I think he looks exactly like him or Keanu Reeves, depending on the age you go.
Keanu could totally be Reed.
Oh, I don't want Keanu as Reed. Actually, no, he's not smart. So Reed was tough because a lot of people really want John Krasinski as Reed, and
no, I don't like that. I'm not into that.
So the reason, obviously, Emily Blunt was supposed to be Black Widow, and then because of a scheduling conflict, she couldn't. So people really want Emily Blunt in the MCU, which I think is great, and I think Emily Blunt would be actually a really good Sue Storm.
You think so? I can't see her being an action star.
Did you not see the Live, Die, Repeat, or depending whatever?
No.
Oh, Edge of Tomorrow. It is fantastic, and she is great in that movie, and she does a lot of action.
With the Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, she's great in that. I actually think she would be great in that, and she's a serious actress. She can be funny. I think she'd be great, and her and John Krasinski are married in real life, so people kind of like that, that dynamic.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of actually pretty solid photoshops of John Krasinski as Reed Richards.
I think it's also because he's lanky as it is.
Right. The problem that I have with that is, it just depends on the characterization. Like I said, I would like to see him be a little bit more of a smug asshole. and he can play smug in like The Office, but it's like
It's playful.
it's
smug,
playful, and like I don't know if I can see him
I
as
feel
a
like
genius.
Zachary Quinto would fit that perfectly.
Yeah, but then he's basically playing Spock again.
Exactly.
So
And he does great Spock.
the people that I had for Reed, and it also depends on the age group. So I would like to see them be a little bit older, like late 30s, early 40s for the three of them, and then Johnny be like early 20s. And the other reason I want a young Johnny is Johnny and Peter Parker are really, really good friends, and I'd like to see someone who could, maybe bounce back and forth with Tom Holland.
Yeah.
So who I had for Reed was Andrew Lincoln from Walking Dead.
For older.
For like if we go a little older, and
Yeah.
he's already got some gray in his hair. Like I think visually he would look great, and there are actually versions of the character in the comics that looks a lot like him, like illustrations. The other person that I saw online that I can kind of see, but it'd be very hard not to look at him as Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny. I can kind of see him doing it, and he was actually almost Star-Lord. He was the second choice for Star-Lord.
Was he really?
Yeah, so he already has a relationship with so he was actually who Gunn wanted until the producers made him see Chris Pratt, and then he was like, "Oh no, Chris Pratt's way better." The other one that I can see is Matt Bomer from White Collar.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
He's tall, he's a good-looking dude, but he's really tall and skinny, and he's starting to get a little older. He's got a little gray in his hair. At one point, I actually really wanted him to be like the adult Spider-Man because he looks like John Romita Jr.'s Peter Parker. And then I also put John Hamm and Timothy Olyphant.
Oh, I put John Hamm also.
I think John Hamm could be really good too, and he could, if they do make him an asshole, John Hamm can play an asshole. Like
yeah,
he did in Mad Men.
John Hamm would be good.
He does it all the time.
So those are who I have. Did you guys have any other ones?
I have one more. I thought John Hamm was like my first one I was leaning towards, and then I came across another one. I was like, yes, this is actually perfect. Dr. Manhattan.
Billy Crudup?
Yeah.
I don't like Billy Crudup's voice. And he's also going to be Flash's dad in the Flash movie. The other one that I saw a lot of people put down online was Luke Evans, who played Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. He's in the Fast and the Furious movies.
Yeah.
Dracula Untold. I actually think he would be great as Doom.
Oh yeah, he would be a much better.
Because he's got a great voice, and he's also like a very handsome man. And like the reason Doom wears the mask is he gets an experiment with Reed that blows up and he gets disfigured. And like he can play that vain, but he also has that cool, calculated look. He's got a great voice for it. He's my number one choice for Doom. Actually, Mads Mikkelsen would have been my first choice.
It's that their look won't matter after like a first introduction. Because
well, you're right, but like depending on, I mean, if they have him take off the mask and they just have him like with a few scars on his face, it could still work. But he also has that great voice.
Yeah.
My first choice would have been Mads Mikkelsen, but he's already been in the MCU.
I like Alexander Skarsgård for Doom.
That's not bad. I could see that. And he's, considered good looking and he can do the same thing. I don't know if he's that great of an actor, though. I haven't really seen him in much.
No, I mean, he was decent in, Tarzan?
I didn't see that one. Viggo Mortensen would be fantastic, but I don't think he'd do a superhero movie.
What about Javier Bardem for Dr. Doom?
That could be good. I would actually really like to see him as Bane.
As Bane?
Yeah. Or at least the voice of Bane.
You feel in charge.
Or the other person for Doom, and I think this is probably my favorite, is, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he plays Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones. Nicola Coster-Waldau. I think he'd be a great Doom.
For who?
Or for Doom?
Yeah.
Who do you have for Doom, Alex?
Javier Bardem.
Oh,
I just totally ignored.
Oh, I did hear that, and I said I prefer Bane. That's right. I apologize. So Ben was probably the hardest one for me.
I think I got a good one. Well, I thought I had good ones. Never mind.
No, who do you got?
The guy who plays Abraham from Walking Dead.
Yeah, he would be good.
Yeah, that would be good. I didn't even think about that.
No, I think he'd be good, and he's big if they go practical. He's got a good voice. He's actually on a lot of websites like fan casting. I think he'd be good. To me, the ideal voice would be Bruce Willis, but I think he's too old for like the
Yeah, he's way too old.
like pre thing Ben. So the people that I picked were people that I think had decent voices, and my go-to would actually be Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So I also picked the Walking Dead actor.
Oh.
He's got a great voice. It's, deep. He's charming. And Ben Grimm is a very charming person. So once again, it depends on the age group that you get for them pre-transformation.
Him and Reed have to be the same.
Yeah, but I think he'd be great. And then I also put Joel McHale.
Joel McHale?
Depending on it just has a different way to, kind of a funnier, smart-ass version.
But he's not buff.
He's not like ginormous, but he's actually is pretty ripped.
What about Ron Perlman?
Is he?
That's
What
too
about
on the nose, and he's
motherfucking
getting too
John
old.
Cena?
No, John Cena sucks.
I know. What about Terry Crews?
Terry Crews could be interesting.
I think that'd just be too comedic.
Right. I think it's too on the nose. Like, I think he wants somebody who's big-ish, but not like The Rock, Terry Crews, John Cena. Like,
I was thinking Liam Hemsworth.
it depends. If they go young, I guess. But I think it just depends on the age group they do. It's tricky. But yeah, those are the people I have. That one's probably the least important because depending on how much time they have before transformation.
There's not a lot of FaceTime.
Yeah, exactly. So what about for Sue, guys?
I like Kristen Bell or Alice Eve.
Alice Eve was actually on my list as well. My number one choice is Emily Blunt or Charlize Theron.
Oh, Charlize would be amazing.
I think she would be great depending on age. And I also had Rosamund Pike from was it Gone Girl? Yeah, Gone Girl. I think she'd be great as well. But my number one choice is Emily Blunt or Charlize.
Charlize would be great. Again, age group, but
yeah.
Oh, she'd be perfect.
Kristen
for
Bell, I don't know. She's cute, and I just don't see her playing like this smart scientist person.
I
mean, she played Veronica Mars.
Yeah, I think she can pull.
And she was good in that. No, I take that back. I could see that.
I don't have a good pick for Sue Storm.
Human Torch was tough for me too, because it just once again depends on the age group. Like, I think Zac Efron, like when you look at like build and his attitude, but I feel like it's a typecasting at its finest. But I'd also like once again somebody a little younger.
I feel like he's too short too.
He is short. So I picked Ansel Elgort. That's the only person I can kind of.
Yeah, he's on my list too. I actually have Ansel Elgort and Billy Magnuson.
I've heard that name before, but I don't know from where.
I've only seen him in a couple things. He was in Game Night. I don't know if you've seen that.
I did.
With, Bateman and Rachel McAdams. He was the stupid one. And he's on that Netflix show Maniac.
Okay. I remember he was in the running for a bunch of other stuff, and I saw the name for like another superhero thing, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is.
But yeah, I mean, if you've seen him act, I totally think he could be Human Torch. Maybe
Dave Franco was the person that I put with like a huge question mark. Like, I like his attitude and look, but it's like that voice I think would get a little annoying.
Yeah. I guess if you're going Tom Holland, he could,
be a couple years older. Like, I'm cool with a couple years older, so that way, like, he has someone he can look up to, but I don't know. That one was really tough, because once again, it really depends on the age that you make this actor, or make the character.
I think Ansel Elgort is our answer here.
Yeah,
Wait, Alex, what did you think?
Well, I like that one, Ansel Elgort. As soon as you guys.
But what did you have? Maybe you have one that's better.
No, I definitely don't.
Probably not. Tell us what you had.
I just was looking at like what other people said. Dave Franco was one. I didn't really care.
Yeah, it's tough just because once again the age group. I would like to see the movie go weird though, like weird science stuff and
like the movie.
Different dimensions. Like I almost want him to like butt heads with like Doctor Strange, like a little bit how Iron Man did, where he explains all the different dimensions as science still. Like he still tries to justify science running all this stuff, because you actually do see the quantum realm in Doctor Strange. And so there's a link, like, if we can get there from science and you can get there through magic, maybe your stuff is actually still just science we don't understand kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see it get really weird. I want to see Galactus. I want to see Silver Surfer.
Well, I think
I
that's
think
what they were testing out with, like, Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok, just to see, like, how people would react with, like, the
I
very
agree.
cosmic
and
stuff.
I definitely think, Well, they were saying that James Gunn was supposed to be like the godfather of Phase 4 and cosmic, like the Marvel is going to get really cosmic. But that just got delayed. So Guardians of the Galaxy 2 got delayed until I think 2022 now.
Damn.
Which is crazy. And I honestly think that going into Phase 4, they're saying that Doc Strange and Spider-Man are going to be like the leaders of Phase 4. But I think you could really get Reed Richards being in there and being the new Iron Man. Not like actually Iron Man, but like
similar. No, I get what you're saying.
Being like the leader and having the stuff. Yeah,
personalities.
But it wouldn't work if he's a dick. Like what makes Tony Stark great is that he's a wise ass, but he's a wise ass to like the senator that was a dick to everyone.
But no, he actually is a dick though. Like in the first movie, he's like.
But he changes in the first movie.
No, I mean the first Avengers movie. He's kind of a dick to all of them. Like everything special about you came from a bottle. Now, granted, they were kind of under.
But he too died and matured.
Calls Thor Point Break. The other thing that I would like to see, and as a way that we can keep Tony Stark in the universe, but not have to have Robert Downey Jr. in for a large portion, is in the comic Robert. It's so hard to like split Robert Downey Jr. and Tony Stark, but in the comic books up until a few months ago, Tony Stark died, but he put his brain in like an AI, so like a Jarvis kind of thing. I think that'd be kind of interesting if they did do like an Illuminati thing a few years down the line after Xavier's in the mix, and have maybe Doctor Strange, Vision, and Reed Richards, and have Tony Stark as like a hologram. So it's a way that we can have Robert Downey Jr. do like cameos, but not have a major role in movies.
Yeah, that could be cool. I feel like his voice would be the majority of that, but I mean, I feel like they would key in on it a lot.
Yeah, they would.
Paul Bettany.
But it gives you a way of keeping him in there. If he ever does want to come back, you can have him just be like a mentor, or still doing the gadgetry stuff, like actually running a facility that builds Iron Man suits or Quinjets or whatever. So yeah, I think we should probably get going. We got a lot to that we unpacked in this episode. Is there any other closing statements you guys want to make?
I just want to ask, Mike, if you had powers, like if this kind of thing in the 2015 one happened to you, would you immediately let the military use your powers?
It depends what. Oh no, I wouldn't let the military use my powers. What powers do I have?
Take your pick out of the four of them.
It depends. What were you doing? Honestly? Were you like being pelted by rocks or not?
How you get? Yeah. Do I have to hatch from a rock egg? Honestly, I wouldn't really. I probably take Sue's powers to go invisible and like have force fields and basically telekinesis.
You and Ben Grimm would take Sue's powers,
right?
You know what I would give to be invisible,
right? Because I wouldn't want to be Ben Grimm because you can't go anywhere. Human Torch, like, you can fly, but you also like catch shit on fire. Like, it's obvious where you're going, and I don't really see the stretching ability as anything special. Like, what am I gonna do with that? But I wouldn't want to be like a military dude. Nah.
No, I think Sue also has the best powers.
Yeah, I agree.
Ben Grimm, all the way. Let me be that monster.
You can't go anywhere.
Let you be the thing. You can't even ride the elevators, Alex.
Yeah.
I'll take the stairs.
Yep. There were some like sexual innuendos in the 2005 where they're like, "Oh, you need to work on your touch." He's like, "I like the sound of that." Does he just use the finger?
That one interview where he's like, "Oh, we heard Reed can. Is it true that Reed can elongate any part of his body?"
Yeah, but I always found him to be a bit limp. See, that's the thing. Like, I liked that aspect of Johnny Storm in that movie. Like, he was just a smart ass, and I like that. So
I think he'd be the Human Torch.
Yeah, I actually think Chris Evans has done great in both of his superhero roles. Actually, he was also in another comic book movie. He was in The Losers. He's done 3 comic book roles.
Yeah.
Good job, Chris.
I like that the 2 Human Torches like got on to do better roles
in Marvel.
Yeah,
yeah, that's true. We also have 2 Sherlock Holmes, and with the Captain Marvel coming out, we're gonna have 2 Watsons in the MCU as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you've got Jude Law was Watson, and Martin Freeman were Watson, and then you've got Benedict Cumberbatch and Robert Downey Jr. as the two Sherlocks. Yep. So, a little bit of bookkeeping stuff at the end of the episode. We're going to kind of take a semi-hiatus. David and Alex still work retail, and we're coming up on their busiest period. So they're going to take a little break from the podcast for about a month or so. But we are going to have we're going to keep the show going. Katrina's going to guest star on an episode. And then we're actually going to have Nick Gambino from Get to the Podcast come back and guest host an episode. So we'll still have episodes going, and we're going to look forward to getting Double D and Alex back in about a month, right, guys?
Yeah.
Get through the holidays.
After we're not super stressed out all the time.
Right. Yeah. Any of our listeners who shop on Black Friday, you guys are dickheads.
It's your fault.
Yep. So, thank you guys for listening. You can support the show on Patreon. Chip in a buck. It helps us, pay for web hosting. We don't watch any of these movies illegally, so we pay for these, so it helps us pay for that kind of thing. You guys can listen to our other podcast, Ruin My Childhood, with myself and Kat. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and like I said, Patreon. So, and we're on YouTube as well. So check all that stuff out. Links are all below in the description if you're listening to it. And if it's on YouTube, there's links there too. Links everywhere.
Thanks, guys. Stay
right,
fantastic.
Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays.
It's fantastic.